Hey guys, welcome to the Island Renaissance podcast with me, Suresh De Silva. I have with me the best I could describe him is as a friend, a peer and colleague, also as a complete muse and inspiration. This is a gentleman that is renowned for being an art director, a graphic designer, a web developer, an artist, and an entrepreneur. I'm talking, of course, about the one, the only, notorious Devaka Perera. Welcome, my friend.
Hi Suresh, thanks for having me. Notorious, huh?
Well, notorious felt like the right word. But, I mean, you are renowned. So notorious felt right. Does it not?
For my work, I hope.
For your work, absolutely, absolutely. So let's kickstart with you telling us what's new, what's going on. I know that you've recently launched your website and it's looking fantastic. There's been a rebranding and a repositioning. So maybe what you can do is talk us through what inspired you to rebrand and reposition yourself. But also, if there's anything new that's happening and if there's anything interesting that you feel people would like to know about.
Okay. So the rebranding happened as a result of all the time I had during COVID. So I think a lot of people had a awakening of sorts. We had time to think.
Yes.
It was a really, really bad time for a lot of people, but I think it gave a lot of people time to think about where they're going, what they're doing, what they would like to do. So during COVID, actually, business-wise, that was a really good time for me personally, because every business went online.
Yes.
Every business went social media, websites. So I actually did quite well because I got a lot of work. And the way I saw it, I already had, I used to work under this name, 𝐈𝐬𝐥𝐚𝐧𝐝. I had this idea where I wanted to give more work to younger artists, younger designers, people who are just coming up because their minds are fresh. And, their thinking is, that they're not bound by, as people get older, they're bound by certain rules within the creative industry. You start thinking more of what will sell rather than, what will look nice, in my opinion, something I can pour my heart and soul into. But as time went on, people started more or less knowing me my name more than my business. And I had the good fortune of having quite a few good clients and word of mouth. I mean, Colombo was a small place, so I got more and more business. So during COVID, I decided, okay, since I have a registered business, I need to do something new with it. And I can go as Devaka Perera. I consider myself a creative person and an artist, so I kind of went with that. And also the way I perceived the working environment changed. I no longer wanted to be an entrepreneur who just started another company and then everybody below me was again part of the rat race. I decided I wanted to be a freelancer giving work to other freelancers.
Right.
So I won't bind them to me, contractually or otherwise. They can do their own work. But I wanted to make a network of freelancers for freelancers. And that has worked pretty well up to now. I have about 3-4 people doing my coding. I have a creative person. I've introduced you to one of them. So it's all very relaxing. You don't have to put up with office politics. I don't care how you do the work as long as you meet the deadline.
You are your own master, which helps.
Absolutely. You only answer to yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I try not to tell the people who work to me, work this way, because this is what works. What I tell them is, go crazy. These are the objectives. Meet them, meet the deadline, and we are good. So there's a lot of creative freedom. On the other side, 𝐈𝐬𝐥𝐚𝐧𝐝, I did a bit of research during COVID and I found out, it's the basics that sold incredibly well during the pandemic. So I have always had a thing for fashion, even though I didn't really study it or go into it. I have worked for fashion designers, and I always found the industry very close to the creative industry. It's ever changing, ever evolving, trends, etc. So when I did some research, the best selling product during the pandemic era was the basic white t-shirt.
All right.
Best selling, and that stayed on top, I think, for the next 2 years.
This is globally?
Globally.
Okay.
Yeah. And to this day, I think it's still the same. So back in the day, I think during the 90s, it was very graffiti-ish, very neon. It was kind of like an offshoot of the disco era. And now you can see we are going back into it.
Right.
But I realized there's a little space in between all this for something that is very neat, minimal, like maybe a label that you can wear straight from the office into the bar, into the club.
Right.
So I decided to partner with one of my old friends and start my own fashion label. So we are in the process of coming up with a few designs. So the point of it is something that you can fit into a meeting, shall we say. You can wear it easily to a meeting, or you can even go straight from the meeting right into the club.
Right.
Yeah. Neat, clean lines, very minimal, maybe black and white, mainly black and white. Even the designs, say the printed items, very minimal designs.
So this goes under, what is the brand name? It goes as your original moniker, which
It goes under 𝐈𝐬𝐥𝐚𝐧𝐝.
𝐈𝐬𝐥𝐚𝐧𝐝.
Yeah.
All right. So that will quintessentially be dealing with the fashion element that you're talking
Yes,
about.
it's going to be a fashion brand, yes.
Right. And everything else will translate to Devaka Perera, which anyway,
Yes,
which you're renowned for.
yeah.
All right. So I'm not sure. I think you might have a slight idea, Masam, but you may not know just how much of an impact you've had in my life. You talk about the whole COVID period, and of course, a lot of people know me as a stigmata guy. I mean, some people know me as a self-published author. Some people now would know me as a lecturer or maybe an entrepreneur or a business owner. But
Absolutely.
mostly they would maybe at that point have known me only as the stigmata guy. Though I've been sort of grinding the bones and wetting my beak and rattling cages in the advertising and marketing industry for about 2 decades. But like you mentioned earlier, I was part of a very conventional setup. And I felt that sometimes my way of thinking, my idiosyncratic sort of personality, my disruptive way of thinking didn't always fit well in a sort of a structure and a sort of a very, very conventional framework that people talk about being out of the box.
Yes.
But I can tell you, and I'm sure you concur and agree with me, that a lot of these so-called people who allegedly talk about being out of the box, especially in ad agencies, are the ones who breathe and live. They can't survive without the box.
It's just a bigger box.
It's just a bigger box.
Yeah.
They open one box to be in another box. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
That's also because their motivational factor is sometimes things like just revenue or profitability, which is important. You have to make a buck or you can't survive.
Yes.
But also it's about awards and it's about accolades and all these things. Like you said, it's not about going crazy with design and not figuring out what the customer, the end user really needs.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had hit a massive slump in my personal life. Where the girlfriend walked out on me at the time, my partner. I'd lost my mom, which hit me really hard. 3 guys in stigmata jumped ship, seeking greener pastures, as it were. It was just Tenny and me left. I have quite a few rescues, as you well know, and I'd lost quite a lot of them.
I remember. Yeah.
And on top of that, what happened was the house that I was renting and staying at, the landlady was pregnant with her 2nd child, and she came from a very cultural and traditional family background, very old family, and she felt that all these things that happened to me was negative. It was bad mojo, and those vibes would somehow affect her and the child and
I
everything.
see.
And then she told me also to clear out. So I found out that all these things happened at the same time, almost in very close succession. And when it did, I have to shift to a new place with just the pets and everything. You visited me once, and that place was a mess because I was a single bachelor at the time living there. And the menagerie of cats and dogs,
I remember, yes.
all of that. It wasn't the most flattering place to live in, and I didn't really love it, but I had to manage because I needed a place as sort of like a purgatory of sorts, like a stepping stone between the transitionary phase. I'd hit a complete low of all lows, and then to add insult to injury, COVID happened at the time, and I found myself in lockdown. And it was just before that where I had, maybe not for the first time in my life, but for the first time with any sort of astute or any sort of dire seriousness, where I had actually contemplated taking my life. And I know this time it was a little bit serious because unlike the other times before, I planned everything, like leaving messages for the band, any family that I had. I planned out and mapped out. There was an actual map, a road map to how I would carry on and go through with it. And there were a couple of things that stopped me. The pets, for one. Like, I couldn't just leave them stranded. The other thing was the band and the music, because that meant a lot to me. And finally, very importantly, I sort of discovered Stoic philosophy, or sort of rediscovered it again. The writings and works of not just guys like Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, but also Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, those guys. But also the writings and the works of psychoanalysts and behavioral psychologists, guys like Carl Jung and Nietzsche and such. And that was the time I decided that I'm going to venture out and sort of try and be my own master and do my own thing.
I remember our conversation.
And you were not one, you were the only one who believed in me.
Really?
The only one.
Okay.
The closest people in my life at that point, they distanced themselves from me at that point. I don't know what the cause of it. Maybe it's all those things together. I realized that I had become toxic. I had become a very noxious individual, very frustrated guy to be around with. I used to get inebriated and high all the time and lash out and cause a public spectacle. I was that guy that wasn't fun to be around with. In a nutshell, I had become the sort of person I wouldn't want to be with in public or even personally.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever partners I had that time, I was being very cruel and harsh to them. I wasn't a very pleasant person to be around. Of course, I didn't know it then. And I just kept getting angry and more bitter. And Tenny, of course, was a driving impetus and a force. He said, let's keep the band going. Let's find new guys. Let's try and manage. Let's soldier on. And that's why during lockdown, no matter how tough it was, Stigmata still kept releasing new music and new material. So I had the creative ebb and flow going. But when I wanted to venture out and do this thing on my own, I remember this was just before COVID hit, where there was always a time when there were people who used to come and hang around daily, with or without being invited. They'd come because there was an eternal surplus and a flow of bong hits. There was alcohol eternally flowing freely in the house. And I needed something to change, and then I gave the bong away, which I hadn't. The bong's name was Mary, by the way, and Mary the bong. Ha. And then, with the greatest difficulty, stopped having alky and having alcohol around. And there were people who told me, you're getting paid quite handsomely. You've been in the industry for close to 2 decades. Right now, your last stint is being head of creative production and design. It's one of the top 10 agencies in Sri Lanka. And that agency, that lifestyle was stressing me out. It was another thing eating at me and killing me from inside, though externally maybe it looked like I was doing well.
I remember that period.
And I had a issue in the agency because in that particular agency, a whole bunch of people in the creative department came together and they sort of staged a coup at the time. A lot of people don't know that. Complained about me. A lot of people who were with me that I had helped and gone out of my way to support sometimes. And they came together and said that I'm a very solo individual, that I'm not someone that's a team player and that my ideas clash with theirs. And I think there were a lot more reasons for that. I think to a certain degree they were maybe right where I wasn't at the top of my game because of all the other problems happening.
Okay.
Then on top of everything, lost that also. Where one day I turn up to work, they've changed my password without telling me. And they didn't allow me to take any of the campaigns or the work I'd done. They changed my password. I could access the computer. And
All right.
You
never told me all this.
I just had to pack. I just got a box, packed everything, all my stuff.
Right.
And I couldn't get any work. Any of the stuff I had worked on for the last 2-3 years. So I thought, fine, new beginnings. Me being me, full of piss and vinegar also, not giving a shit. I thought everything's going to shit, that's okay. But then I thought, something needs to change. And it was around that time that I thought I will seek to further my higher education. Something I've never done. Something that's always been in the back of my mind. I need to do that. And then I thought, in order for me to be my own master and get my own work done, I need to get fitter. I need to not just get more mentally robust and fitter, but I need to physically get back into shape. I need to stop having this toxic, lecherous, crazy lifestyle of screwing around and just getting high all the time. Something has to change. And when I started to implement that change, I found that more and more people were not around me. And it was just me with the pets. And it was a really difficult time. At that time only, when I wanted to go and venture on my own, family and people I know started to reach out and said, you are mad. Just go and join another agency. Everyone has work stress. Everyone deals with anxiety and stuff. What do you have to complain about? And then some people like, yeah, you're a rock star, so be a whiny little shit rock star like you are, just because you can't. They didn't understand the inner workings of everything that was tearing me and dismantling me. I was coming undone, Machan. I'd reached the last straw.
They didn't know your full story, I think.
They didn't.
Yeah.
And then you reached out. I don't know. I reached out to you or you reached out to me. I don't know whether it was providence or simply circumstantial, whether you saw something I'd posted on LinkedIn or Facebook or something. But we somehow got in touch.
Yeah, I remember the conversation. It was online.
Because I was very surprised. I mean, I knew you did this kind of work. But you were like, Machang, just go for it. You're going to find the first few months difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. You're not going to have clients. It's going to be hard. But just bloody go for it. And you were the only one who believed me at that time to do that. And for me, that was significant. Everyone else thought I was mad. He has lost everything. Lost a woman, lost a job, lost pets, girlfriend left him for someone else. All this crazy stuff. I was like, yeah, let's just write this dude off. He's gone. He's finished. Bye-bye.
I think I remember you call me, I think, for a costing of some sorts.
Yes.
And then you put this idea forward.
Asked you what do you think about this?
Yeah, what do you
something?
think of me going freelance?
Yeah.
I think I don't remember all of it, but I do remember you're not giving you much of a choice.
Yeah.
By the time you
The conversation ended, I was convinced that I should do it.
No, not only that. I remember this much because we both laughed about this later on. By the time it was evening, I had already set up the social media pages.
And you designed the logo for
and a makeshift logo. Yeah.
And that changed everything because sometimes...
I just remember the message you sent saying, wait, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. And I had already finished it.
You had already finished it?
Yes.
And, I always use this quote because it's one of my favorites. Friedrich Nietzsche said, if you stare long enough at the abyss will always stare back at you. And to me, I was there and I had hit rock bottom to such a degree that there was nowhere else to go other than to end it all, to just snuff it all out, fade away, or to just try and swim all the way bloody back up to the surface. And you gave me, Machan, that initial inspiration and spark to do that by just believing in me. And I want to, the reason I'm talking about this is that there are so many people, mental health for young ladies and women, sure, but especially for men, young boys and men, it's very hard because we are brought up as men to save face and to be strong, to be robust and steadfast, and to show that you're gullible or vulnerable is seen as weakness.
Yeah, especially
By
from our
family,
generation.
family,
Yes.
especially our
Our
generation.
generation, yes.
By family and friends and people
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Also, there's this scenario where people love to flock around success stories, but not people who they think are just going to crash and burn. That's when people need someone to lean on the most, right? So when you've hit that rock bottom and you feel like there's no way forward, always remember there is someone out there who does believe in you. And whether it's one person out of like a million who don't believe in you, that one person is enough to help you leave the bottom and swim back to the surface. So for that much, I want to say thank you. For that alone, Machan, getting you to the podcast was enough for me. But of course, we're going to talk about more interesting things now that this acrimonious dark cloud managed to get it out of the way.
I had no idea this was that serious, but
Oh, it was.
but honestly, it wasn't hard for me to believe in you. I have always looked at you as an intellectual of sorts. I always knew there was something below the surface. You just, I guess you just weren't in the correct place to tap into it.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like throwing a baby into a pool. They immediately know how to swim.
that is true. Yeah.
I just think everything that happened to you wasn't bad luck or bad period or whatever you may call it. I think that's what you needed to transition
Yes.
into what you are now, because you're not just swimming right now, you're sailing.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
I mean, you've never had as many clients. You command a lot of respect. And now you're teaching as well, right? Yeah.
I'm lecturing for 3 universities, including CIM. So I've, after that, I mean, thanks to you, after I did that, got back into shape. I finished a double master's, finished 7 stages of CIM, did a top up, and now I'm
Yeah.
actually.
And how long does this take you?
I did all of this in about less than 5 years, I'd say.
That's the thing. When I started freelancing, I was 19. I struggled well, shall we say, into my mid-20s. Only when I suppose you can say, only when I really decided to work smart rather than work hard. It took me 4 years. So I think it takes us to be in that situation.
It's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
You have to hit the roadblocks. in
Yeah,
order
and
to-
the thing is, I suppose it's important to not stay down.
you to get back up.
Yeah,
That's the
you
thing.
hit the ground running. But there is a transition period, and I've always noticed this happens to people when they're at their lowest point. Either they manage and they manage for the rest of their lives, or they realize I can do much better than this, and I want to prove it to myself rather than everybody else. So I think you just went through a very important transitionary period. Like the you that we're seeing now is the you that is actually you. I think you were just experimenting, seeing what is best for you.
Trying
And
to
yes,
still figure out stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, and I mean that's human. And I mean we're still doing it, right? We're still experimenting.
Except that I took 3.5 decades on this earth to figure that out. But
Yeah, well, I mean look at Colonel Sanders.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, some of us take much longer time. Some of us
Yeah.
take a shorter time. I mean there are TikTok teenage stars out there who have more money than you and I will ever see in this lifetime.
That is true.
Right? We all have points of transformation. I think you just went through that, but I, this is I had no idea it was this serious.
It was, and thank you once again.
I'm glad I was able to help.
Appreciate it. Meh.
Yeah, but I always believed in you. I knew there was something there that just needed to be uncorked.
Thank you. Meh. We will drink to that later.
Sure.
After that. In need of a drink today also. Heavy-handed topics and all of that. Macha, Hari, so what drew you to art? I think that's important. I think people know Devaka Perera. They know for the quality of work, your output, the finesse. They also know that you're a socialite to a certain degree. You're known in different.
I am?
You're known in many social circles. Also on account of maybe the work projects that you've done. It could be.
I think it's probably that.
But you've also created and built a target audience, a niche that you work with.
Yeah.
And that takes time to find that identity and to find your rhythm, find your footing.
Yes.
But what a lot of people may not know is, like, how was it for you as a teenager and a young adult? What is the shit that you went through, and how were you thrust into this profession? Was it out of choice? Was it out of inevitability? Like me, I got thrust into the creative industry because I was waiting for O-level results. And you remember Rajiv Raja in school?
Yes.
Yeah, and his uncle owned Cameron, Pale and Medina advertising agency at that time. And Rajiv said, "Yeah, man, he's looking for a creative writer, copywriter. Would you be interested?" And I said, "What is that?" He said, "You write lyrics, right, for Stigmata?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's just like that." It was nothing like that. But that was the starting point.
Oversimplification, but
Yeah.
he has a point.
He has a point.
Yeah.
So went there, and that was my introduction. Like, I wasn't a person who envisaged or dreamed thinking, I'm going to go into the ad industry and this is going to be within the orbit of creativity that or innovation that would work for me. It somehow all panned out. Did you somehow stumble upon it? Were you thrust into it? Or that's one question. But also take people through what you've had to go through, because Machang, I've got to know you through the years and I know you've not had an easy life. People look at you now, but they don't know all the sacrifices and the struggle you had to personally go through, Machang, and the isolation and to separate yourself from toxic people and family to, if you don't mind, to get where you are. I think people have to know it because it's an inspirational story. So it's a double-barrel question, bit heavy, but however you want to attack it.
Yeah, well, I don't think my story is very unique. But I mean, you and I are from the same generation, so I suppose we've had the same issues. So my love of art and design, I think, started back when I was a kid. You know, it's strange. As a kid, you know exactly who you want to be and what you want to do. Most great men actually think back to their childhoods and they find themselves. I can't remember the person who wrote that quote. There's a quote that says a man searches the world for what he wants and comes back home to find it. I think it's not only about your location geographically. I think it's about basically, you know,
Yourself and your
looking
journey.
back and
Yeah.
understanding you knew when you were a kid what you wanted to be. So I suppose it started in school. And honestly, it started with a cartoon. Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
Yeah. Remember the 1980s? Goofy as hell.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are watching it again these days. They've upscaled it using AI and people are watching it on, not Netflix,
The
something
same
else.
thing? The same thing?
Yeah, the
Bolstered up.
1980s.
All right.
Yeah, it's the same
Heroes in a
cartoon.
half shell, that was
Yes,
all right.
exactly.
Yeah,
Or the theme song.
yeah.
They've used AI to upscale it into, shall we say, I think it's HD quality now. You can
Love
watch
the
it.
cartoon and love the first movie, Macha.
Yeah.
That was groundbreaking.
Yeah,
With
nostalgic.
Casey Jones
Yeah.
and all. Shredded.
Yes. So the cartoon, I think, came out in 87 and the movie came out in 90. I
90
think.
90 or
1990, yes. So when the cartoon came out, I was instantly
But we would have watched it on VHS, right? Because TV
Yes,
wasn't
yes.
showing it until much
No.
later.
Yeah. So my
yeah.
cousins used to get the VHS tapes back in the day. I mean, having a deck was
Yeah.
the in thing. So I was instantly fascinated. And I started by trying to draw them.
Mm.
And it grew. And then I started drawing other things. And
How
then
old were you about?
Hmm.
Must have been about 8 or 9, I reckon.
I suppose so, yes.
If this is 87,
Yeah,
88.
yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, I think I was properly into drawing in my early teens. I was drawing other things as well, and I was coming up with my own characters and all that. And yeah, in school, like my notebooks were full of drawings.
Mm.
I was an average student at best, but I loved drawing. I loved art, and I think we had that teacher, Mrs. Paulis, right?
Mrs. Paulus was there.
Yes.
And then we had the art sir also, remember, during middle school?
Yeah, but Mrs. Paulis, I think she was very, very supportive.
By Mrs. Kanti also, right?
Yeah. Mrs. Kanti, I don't remember, but I remember all the teachers. Every time the parents teachers days came up, everybody had the same complaint. His notebooks are full of drawings. But I remember the art teacher used to stand up for me, and yeah, so it started there, and then I discovered Photoshop.
Whenabouts was that?
Oh my gosh, this was Photoshop 5. I don't even know what version we are using right now. It's
Do you guys know what version we're using? Photoshop. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was Photoshop 5 with like this very basic looking logo. And I used to just make up characters, and I used to trick my classmates saying this is the latest character in games. I remember Mortal Kombat came out, and we were fascinated. I was like, this is the next Mortal Kombat. This is the character that's coming out.
Nice.
And I got pretty good at it. And after that, I think when the time came to leave, I think right after O levels, I think that's the point of time everybody kind of decides which direction they're going in. So I actually didn't see the point in sticking in school, to be honest. I had read a lot of, I had spent quite a bit of time on the internet, and back in the day, we had those modems that made that horrible sound while connecting.
Modems and cafes.
Yeah, and somebody picks up the phone, you get a call, it cuts.
It cuts.
Your download's done for. Yeah. So
Remember a time when, like nowadays, we get impatient with fiber or Wi-Fi, where like it's not loading fast.
yeah,
People should go back to the modem days, huh?
yeah, I hated
For page,
that
something to
noise
load.
itself gave you anxiety.
Yeah.
So I had done quite a bit of surfing, and I what I realized was there's a lot you can do without actually going the well-trodden path,
Yes.
like O levels, A levels. Then you do a small exam to a bigger exam, diploma, degree, then masters. And also I was 83 born, which meant I had that 6-month advantage. So I did a few calculations, and I figured out, you know what, if I actually leave school after my O levels, I can enter university. I can do a certificate course. So by the time I finished,
in design.
I wanted to do fine arts and design, but I mean, back in the day,
You did
artists.
software, no?
Yes, I did software engineering mainly
Interesting.
because,
Okay.
well, to be honest, I mean, design and art weren't exactly fields that made too much money back in the day. My family was very concerned that I was headed in the way of the struggling artist,
Right.
right? So a lot was done to discourage me.
Only
But
child?
yes, yeah. But I used to manage with my studies, but I used to pour a lot of myself into my art.
Right.
I used to hide stuff and draw, paint. I used to go to this art class close to my house. I can't exactly remember that lady's name, but I remember.
Dimitri's auntie, was it? By any
Uh,
chance? A lady Ismail?
No. This was. She's actually in Australia right now. I think she's gotten quite famous. Um, right after the O levels, I had to find some way of, what I thought was I'll make the money on the side, but I'll focus on design and art because that's my passion.
Right.
Family was dead against it. Somehow I knew I could make this work.
Right.
I knew it was an upcoming field.
So you 16, 17 wage, ne?
Must
be smaller.
Yeah, 16.
16.
Yeah, because of the 83 thing, I was 15.
Right. Okay.
Everybody in my class was 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I figured was I need to get my studies out of the way fast. And if I get my studies out of the way fast and I was ready for the workforce, I could jump straight into the creative field.
Right.
And nobody could do anything about it. So that was my plan. But
did you know it as like a creative field per se?
I didn't. Well, the thing is, I was still a kid, to be honest. At 16, I was pretty immature, even for a 16-year-old. I was fascinated with the comics.
Right, okay.
But I liked art as art, and I wanted to go into that, but very aggressive pushback from the family.
Okay. What kind, if you don't mind, what kind of art did you lean towards at that? I mean, you've said you used to draw like caricatures and portrait and like, all these cartoon characters and stuff. But leaving that aside, was there any style of art that you leaned more towards?
So I loved pencil and charcoal.
Nice.
Those are the mediums. And I loved drawing...
Charcoal on canvas?
Yes.
Nice.
I love drawing human musculature, horses, anything that just jumped out of the canvas and said speed, power, movement, passion. Right. When you think of a horse galloping along the beach, you think of that. There's beauty, there's grace, there's power. You don't want to mess with a horse.
Yeah.
So there were a few things I was leaning towards, but I knew I wanted to go into the creative field.
Right.
But yeah, aggressive pushback from the family, I had to make plans.
Yeah.
So this was more or less, I would say, my master plan. Just do whatever it takes just to keep them satisfied or keep them quiet. Get my studies out of the way and then go into the creative field. But what happened was my family didn't exactly agree with my plan. They were still of that opinion that you needed your A-levels, that there's no other way you can do things.
Right.
They didn't bother exploring. Now, I knew by looking up certain things on the net, by asking people who are actually in those fields, that this can be done. But yeah, so I was forced to give up that plan. I feel like I wasted a couple more years in St. Thomas's doing the London A's.
Okay.
But else I could have gone straight into a higher education, and then I went into college. But by that time, I felt like I had wasted a lot of time.
Okay. College abroad?
No, I was at the Australian College here in Colombo.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're tied to 𝐸𝐸𝐿𝐿.
Okay.
So all they had was business and IT.
Right.
So I am a bit of a techie as well. So I went into software engineering.
Okay.
So what I did was...
So back-end and coding and all also you're fluent?
I can do coding.
JavaScript and...
JavaScript. And we learned a few older languages.
Wasn't there basic and stuff in the start?
Yeah. So though I think database-wise, I think basic, 𝐶Basic and all that.
𝐶Basic and all that.
Yeah. So what I did was, see, a uni, you can space out your subjects. You can do it at your own pace. And in Colombo, I don't think they were very particular about getting students out fast. So I would say my academic history, nothing to write home about. I took it as slow as possible. But while I was doing that, I was doing my creative work.
Right.
I was doing small little posters for 500 rupees.
Hand-drawn as well as using Photoshop at that point?
I used to draw certain things and then clean it up on Photoshop.
Right.
So by that time, I think Photoshop 6.5 or 7. So I was heavily into Photoshop. I was like, this is my tool, right? This is incredible. Then I think I was taking so long to finish my higher studies. I think my parents also had enough of this. And I was doing everything I can, I think, to stay out of the house.
Right.
So I got this one project. Do you remember the nightclub called H2O?
Yeah, of course.
Way back in the day.
Gihanandan.
Yes, that's right. So I got this project to throw a hip-hop rap party. And back in the day, there was this genre of music called garage.
Yes.
It was all the rage. Craig David. Yeah. So rap, hip-hop and garage.
Okay.
A couple of my friends had formed a little team. They were like, we are going to throw parties.
Right.
And they got me on board and said, you do all the creative work. So back then there was no social media.
This was not CNL, no?
No. CNL came later. So back then there was no social media posts. You make a creative, you paste it on the body of the email, and you send the email to as many people as possible.
And then you print out physical leaflets and put it in select locations or give it out.
Exactly, right. So I started doing that. And then when it came close to the date, they were like, you know what? We need something special. We need to do the decor for the party. We need to do something unique. So back in the day, I mean, there was no, like, I had no practicality in me. I was like, you know what? They've given me a canvas and I need to do this properly. I visited a junkyard,
All right.
like basically a broken down garage. I got rusted barrels. I'm pretty sure one of us would have gotten tetanus. We dragged those into the club, H2O, you know, that pristine. We dragged the exhausts, old tires.
That was a nice club, man, with a big car park.
I ruined it, I think, for 2 days. I pulled in broken exhaust shafts, axles, tires, crushed cans.
Right.
And I laid a huge piece of cloth over the main screen that used to show music videos while the club was going on. Laid it over the entire wall and spray painted graffiti on it with glow-in-the-dark paint.
Nice.
And I did all the metal elements as well, the cans, the car parts. We even had, like, I think, a seat from the back of a van. So it was meant to portray, you know, these are the streets, you know, where rap and hip-hop was born. So when the lights went off, everything jumped out at you. It was glow-in-the-dark paint. So what I didn't realize was the paint was so, potent. It had gone right through the canvas and it had stuck itself right onto the screen. But yeah, that was, I think, the start of my career where somebody noticed my work, because while I was spray painting, and I still have the photographs to this day, the owner of the club came out and was like, you do some good work. Would you like to do some work for me? So I was like, yeah, sure. So he wanted those emailers.
Right.
So
this is a Gihan you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Right?
G.
Yes. So I started doing that for him. And then they started Sugar upstairs, the retro club. Then his brother started R&B. Then I think the other brother started FDOs, the karaoke
But the
joint.
oldest,
Uh,
Jeff had Cyclone, which was later Clancy's.
Yes. So I didn't do Cyclone, but everything branded H2O, Sugar. Then they started Sugar Colombo.
Yes.
So I started doing all those logos, and with the technology also improving, Photoshop was getting upgraded. Then there were vector tools available. I started doing work for all their businesses.
And how old were you then, Maj?
19 to about my early 20s.
Nice, impressive.
Yeah.
So what was your weapon of choice? You used a desktop or a laptop?
I used a desktop.
Okay.
It was an old Pentium 2, I think. So, I mean,
At
that's
home,
all.
at home, you were at home.
Yeah, at home.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, all I needed was
Parents knew?
Photoshop.
They suspected or oblivious?
I'm sure they knew,
Nice.
but I mean, you can't keep an eye on me 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, got into a lot of trouble, but I mean, and of course, when you hear that your son is working for nightclubs back in the day, you just think of the vice. Yeah. But what they didn't see was I got the first brother's business, which was H2O. Then I got his business partner's business, which was Sugar. Then they expanded into Sugar Colombo. I got that.
Yeah.
Then the other brother started R&B. I
Russell,
got that. Yeah. Then Russell's son and daughter started Fern and Chiller Room.
This is Dimitri.
Yes. Yeah. So all those logos to this very day are mine. And their social media posts, when Facebook started up, Instagram started up, I did all that. So I literally grew up in the clubs. I used to do little parties. I used to team up with DJs and throw beach parties. So my job was the creative side of things.
Right.
So while I was doing that, things were still hard, because back then I could only charge 500 rupees a flyer or emailer.
Right.
And honestly, no support from the family. I was very discouraged. I guess I was in the same place that you were, but you've gone through a much harder time. But as far as I was concerned, nobody was seeing the potential in this field,
Right, yeah, yeah.
and I
No agencies approach you. But that means, Masa, you were quintessentially one of, in our generation, one of the first freelancers.
quite possibly, because honestly, all I heard was discouraging words. Freelancing doesn't work. Artist doesn't work. Creative work, there's a limit, right? Get a job, get a suit, get a tie, get paid 9 to 7, blah blah, right? And yeah, behind the scenes, before I forget, I had 2 jobs.
Mm.
I got a job at one of my father's cousin's workplace, which was an NGO.
Mm. In
Uh,
Colombo.
yeah, it was tied to the University of Oslo, Norway.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think, my first lesson in how easily a company can fall apart. I was still a kid when I started working there, but I think my parents were happy that I got a 9 to 5. So they thought maybe it'll discipline me out of this club and creative nonsense. But I was always doing it in the back, and I was hired actually to do their flyers and their website.
Right.
So I think that was one of my first websites, and I realized, okay, this is something where I can bring tech and creativity together.
Right, yeah.
So at the back of my mind, I was like,
This is
okay,
for the NGO or the
For the NGO.
For Oslo.
for the NGO. The
Okay.
NGO was connected to
Oslo
the University
Uni.
of yeah.
Okay.
So they were putting forward training programs, corporate training programs, and they had this degree and diploma also for human resource management, business management. So I was working there, and I think that was my first lesson in how the workplace works and how people talk about other people they work with behind their backs. I think I was very green at that point, and this was all very, very new to me, and I don't know, it just seems a little ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I mean, that thought that, you need a 9 to 5 to survive.
Early 20s, this was?
Yes,
yours.
early 20s. Yeah, 19 to about 23.
But this was after the whole H2O experience, or was it?
While
around
it was
the
running
same time?
alongside. It was running alongside.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
Then, right after that, I joined a popular travel company, totally by accident. And I went in there to help a friend.
Inbound.
Yeah, inbound, right. So I don't want to mention names, but
Okay.
I joined that travel company. That was my second lesson on how toxic and how political an office can be. It was horrible. People backstabbing each other.
Like it gives cutthroat and
Yeah.
dog eat dog new meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I landed in the middle of like a toxic kind of obsession between 2 colleagues.
Mm.
I don't know, just thinking of it makes me laugh now. It's funny now, but back in the day when you're 19 to 20 and when you're caught in a situation where you feel helpless, and I think you're familiar with the feeling of helplessness. Sometimes you just want to run away. But yeah, I quit after that, and I quit, and I was very honest about my reasons for quitting. And the HR department called me and asked me, tell us the truth. And that was also a lesson in life for me. The HR department is there for show. They do nothing to help you. They protect the company they're working with. They don't care about the human resources. They get in, They just need you to go as quietly as possible without making too much noise.
Right.
Right?
They were trying to gauge how much noise you were going to make if you left.
Honestly, I think by that time I was just done. I wasn't interested in making any noise. I was like, I'm really glad I'm out of here. Just let me go. And they told me they were going to switch me to another department. So I kept on calling back and checking. And finally they were like, you know what? If you get a better offer, you can go. And I realized they're stringing me along. Right. So finally I was like, okay, you know what? Take the lesson. And I'm in 1920, more or less. I considered myself still a kid, very green. So I shouldn't make too much noise. I should be smart about this, be honest. But I was like, I want to be a freelancer. I want to answer only to myself. I want to avoid all this nonsense. Office politics. I don't want to have to try and suck up to somebody just to climb the corporate ladder. I didn't want to flatter somebody, so I stay in their good books. I wanted to avoid it all. So I made up my mind, I'm going to be a freelancer. No matter what happens, I need to have my own thing that I'm doing, and I need to earn from it. So at that point of time, I was taking little odd jobs, and I ran into this fashion designer, one of Sri Lanka's foremost fashion designers, Andre Stefan. That's the name of his label. So Stefan met me during one of I was doing a website for this little project that one of my friends' parents had come up with. So
this was after you left immediately after you left
after I left the travel company.
company.
Yes. Yeah. I was disgusted. And I think I was even more disgusted by my family telling me, it looks like you can't keep a job. And I was like, the NGO fell apart because it was mismanaged. And I said, do you really want me in the middle of two people obsessed with each other? And, the details are too harrowing to go through. But I honestly was disgusted at the entire situation. So when I met Stefan has always worked for himself.
So guys, the Island Renaissance podcast can only be a reality, and it comes alive thanks to our official sponsor, which is Skin Family Wellness Private Limited. Skin Family Wellness is a body care, therapeutic, treatment, wellness facility, state-of-the-art wellness facility that is situated in the heart of Colombo. It's opposite Bellagio Casino, number 353 𝐟𝐸𝐷𝐸𝐿 Mavata. Its hotline is 0112 575744. So make sure you check out Skin Family Wellness on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook. You can call the hotline for treatments, for bookings, inquiries, and reservations. There's everything. These guys have everything from full body massage therapies and treatments, Swedish full body, customized full body massage treatments, foot reflexology, hand reflexology, cupping, hot stone massage, and herbal steam baths. All right. So make sure you check them out. And finally, a big shout out to iFilm Sri Lanka for accommodating me and for allowing me to record and for supporting me. The wonderful team here supports with the filming and the editing of these pod interviews. So thank you.
He basically schooled me in how to get jobs, carry through, costing, quoting, then chasing payments.
Stefan was that dude who believed in you. And
yes. So he got me involved in a lot of his projects, his fashion shows, his side projects, which were interiors and like the branding and stuff he did for his clients. So I would say I think I learned the most from him. You're right. I guess he's the person who saw my potential, saw what I was doing, and I think he also knew in the future creative work is going to become very expensive and it's going to be sought after. Because you can teach somebody to use Photoshop, but you can't teach them to use
creative.
Yes, you can't. Right. So working alongside him, and again, very aggressive pushback from my family, I learned the ropes from him, how to handle projects and all that. At the same time, I was getting my own clients. So it was, I think, at this point where, I started doing stuff for other clubs, doing their branding, their logos, everything, menus, lots of graphic design. And then slowly, I got into websites as well. So I felt that I was using my degree for something. It was a mix of tech and art.
But it's also within orbit of what you are always passionate about. You were always passionate about.
Yes. I always wanted to keep that element of art. And I think working with Stefan, I think that grew even stronger. I knew this is where I belong. This is where I want to be. And I know, it just made me happy. If it makes you happy and if it makes you money, I don't think there's anything else you need to chase after.
That's true.
So I learned the ropes from him, started gathering clients, and I think, but I was still just plain managing. But then I think with the experience, getting bigger and bigger clients and clients who came back to you. And right now I have I think I have clients that have stuck with me for the last 8 or 10 years. They still see me as the kid who joined them. I think the nightclub owners also, they still call me Puta, right? 41-year-old Puta, yeah. So gathered along the way. And then I started my own nightclub at one point. You performed in there. Which way best?
Yes.
Yeah. So those were good examples, I think, from my bad experiences with my first two workplaces, how you protect yourself. Because I left that club because at the end of the day, I was very, very particular about who I let into the club. I was managing the entire place. I used to turn away people who weren't over 18. But to the owners of the clubs, that wasn't a big deal as long as they sold a bottle. In the end, that caught up with them when they had to shut the club down. But I had left by then because, I protested against, I think one too many times against them letting kids in. Yeah. But yeah, I left long before things fell apart, earned my money, did the branding, got it done. And Stigmata played in there. I remember that night well. Yeah. TNL had their on stage in there as well. Yeah. So like that, I have a lot of clients who keep on coming back to me. I work with the Gaul Lit Fest and their sister festival, Gourmet Gaul. I still do a little work for the clubs now and then. But after COVID, doing business online became a big thing. So I do a lot of websites right now. Everybody has, I think to have a brick and mortar business is for sure, but most of the business happens online now. So there are a lot of websites that I'm involved in right now. But yeah, that's more or less how I managed to, get things going. I think the last, I think I was about 27 when I finally decided that, I need to stop doing a whole lot of work for chicken feed. I need to properly price my things. And the thing is, I hate money matters. I hate chasing payments. I hate asking for money. I just want to do my art. If I can hire somebody to chase the payments for me, I think that'll be amazing. But fortunately, I think people have been very kind to me. Like my clients, they've stuck with me for a long time.
Also because your work is good, you're loyal, and you're reliable. And I think the customers that you have built, they've stayed with you. I always believe in this. It finally it trickles down to value, macha. Even the work that I do, the brand and business strategy stuff, the creative consultation stuff, the creative direction, that creative director based stuff, content marketing and all of that. For me, it's not about just doing great, memorable work. If you love what you do, then it's not work. It's something, the passion that you have and the purpose, I always believe, whether it's stigmata or work or writing or anything, it comes out.
Yeah, your passion shows through your work. Yeah.
People see that, right? So same with you. And the customers get unprecedented value. If you're giving them value for the buck that they spend, and you're willing to go out of your way for them, that extra mile, they're not fools. They see it. They appreciate it. Whereas agencies are just there to tear off a limb.
I suppose, yeah. And the thing is, if you noticed after COVID, there is a growing trend now in the advertising agency sphere. Most of them, they hire freelancers.
Or use generative AI, which is the next one, a big topic that I want to talk to you about.
Right.
And we don't have a lot of time,
Yeah.
but I think this is a very important topic from an industry expert, especially someone who is a professional consultant / freelancer, self-made entrepreneur, right? Specializing in web design, art direction, art. Then I would also say, business-related stuff. But then also event management in a big way. Let's talk about generative AI, Macha. How do you view that as a tool? Is it a crutch? Is it some kind of an aid? Or is it something that is going to be an obstacle for creative people? Because right now, the creative industry seems to be befuddled and bamboozled over this. Also, many an industry are relying on generative AI. Now, I'm one of the few people out there who doesn't see it as a bad thing.
Right.
My personal view of this, Machang, is that it is an invaluable tool the same way you look at Adobe, Photoshop or Illustrator. Or you can go to an old school canvas or a drawing book.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I look at it that way.
Right.
If used responsibly with
Yes.
accountability
Yes.
and proficiently,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a valuable asset. But
Agreed.
it is not the ultimate or ultimatum, the solution for people's problem solving. I don't see it that way. But there seems to be a lot of hullabaloo and ho-ha over Machang, especially with creative personnel in the industry, that it's taking over, it's going to replace creative personnel, creative minds. What are your thoughts on this?
I do agree with you on the point. See, back in the day, the advertising agencies, you hand draw everything. Say an advertisement, you hand draw it, and then you can show it to the boss. And if he says, that's the wrong shade of red, you have to do it all over again. So people panicked the same way when Photoshop came up. I remember this because when I started using Photoshop, I remember speaking to a few people who did creative work, and they were saying the same thing. This is the ruination of the creative industry. You can do things so fast. There's no heart. There's no soul. There's this. There's that, and the other thing. But I think they just felt that their way of doing things was threatened.
Was going to be rendered obsolete.
I don't think it entered upon them to realize that you have to evolve.
Yes.
Yeah, everything evolves. So when I learned Photoshop, I realized, this is just a tool. A tool is nothing without the person who wields it.
True.
So I am the creative person behind Photoshop. Even if I was doing things manually, if I was painting the whole post and showing to the boss, I'm still the creative person behind it. It's my idea. So likewise, I think AI is also just a tool. But I understand where the concern comes from, because right now, AI is a tool that has been let loose on the market without any control. So I'll give you an example. You're quite active on Twitter, called X right now. Yeah. So on X, I was following this one case with a lot of interest because it concerned a guy who claimed that his designs were stolen by AI. Now, to make sense of that, you have to understand what AI does. So now if you, I use ChatGPT myself. I use ChatGPT to generate the user manuals for my websites. So it takes care of a small part of it.
No, it saves on time. It's more resourceful. You're not spending days on end doing research or back end.
Yes. Yeah. So the thing is, you have to understand how AI works. So what AI works does is, it's called scraping. When you start up an AI program and you say generate a user manual for WordPress, it'll scrape information from the net and put it on a document for you. So you just copy and paste it. Likewise,
so it's like web crawlers, except what it does is
web crawlers.
It scrapes from pre-existing sources.
Exactly.
That are there.
So if you say, take a picture of, I don't know, some celebrity and paint him in the style of Van Gogh, it'll look up Van Gogh, it'll look up the celebrity, it'll merge it together. It just scrapes information off already existing information.
Right.
So it's important to understand that there are certain laws that should exist but don't exist yet. So now this particular individual on X, he put the generated artwork on the left and his artwork on the right.
I saw this.
Yes. It was quite a famous case.
Yeah.
So he won the case. See, this is the thing. AI shouldn't be allowed to scrape art of an existing piece. There should be some laws in place to protect an artist's original work.
That's what it does, doesn't it?
That's what it does. See, that's
and
the
how
thing.
will it do it? It's not in a position. We are not reached a point where AI has evolved to say superior, what you call supreme intelligence, where it can differentiate also, right?
Right now, it's instructional tool. But that's where you need to realize the fault lies with the user. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what the person who gave the prompt, the piece of art that was a copy, the prompt would have probably been, do this in the style of this. And it'd come out almost an exact copy with a few little, changes here and there.
Yeah.
But he won the case. He proved that the AI was prompted to copy his work. So he won the case. So I think we are seeing the rise of a tool that's in its infancy and it's moving very fast.
And at its infancy, that is growing incredibly fast, it's also been misused already at this
Yes.
stage.
It's being misused because right now the tool is evolving faster than the legal side of things. So people haven't had time to put laws on it. But the fact that a person can win a case shows that there are things that you can do.
Right.
So now if somebody says, I mean, if I put out a drawing of one of my horse drawings, and they say, copy his work, but with a few changes, if I can prove that they copied my work, I can win the case.
Also, Basang, AI can only scrape, as you said.
Yeah, it can only
Stuff
scrape
that
so
has
far.
been online.
Yes, but now it's evolved to a point where it can come up with totally new artwork.
Okay.
So like I said, now if I have a picture of you and I upload it and I say, draw him in the style of Van Gogh, so you'll get Van Gogh's paint strokes, the circular strokes, but it'll be your face.
Right.
So you're not copying one of Van Gogh's original works. You're just doing it in the style
Stylistic.
of Van Gogh, but I'm
simulation.
doing your face. So it's an original.
Right.
So now that's okay. But if somebody says, copy Devaka's horse drawing, but, just position the mane differently, the hooves differently, or have it standing stationary, it's still my work with a few changes. Remember, back in the day, people would steal ideas left and right. We didn't have all these laws back then. Speaking as somebody who is actually going through a court case right now, I am taking one of my clients to court. It has been going on for the last year and a half. They used one of my designs without permission, spread it across the entire product range. That case is ongoing. It's looking good. But that's the thing. Back in the day when Photoshop just came up, there weren't rules, the laws. But eventually the laws caught up with the tools.
That's
So
true.
what I'm saying is, or the way I see it, AI is a good tool if used responsibly. And within that, the legal boundaries. We just need the legal side to catch up with the tool right now because it is tech. It's moving forward very fast.
And you think that the legal frameworks and regulatory frameworks are going to catch up at some
Yes,
point?
the fact that this person won his case is proof that you can still fight.
Right.
Others, he would have lost the case, yes?
But this wasn't the case won over here, no? It was an overseas situation.
It was an overseas case.
Yes. So we have an issue in developing.
Yes. So the tool
regions.
is evolving faster than the legal side of things, but it will catch up.
Right.
Yeah. And anyway, I mean, say something happens in Sri Lanka, if you can prove that it was copied, it's still very embarrassing in a small country, isn't it?
Yeah. There's reputational damage,
Yes,
of course.
it'll be embarrassing for the ad agency. It'll be embarrassing for the individual who came up with it.
And we have more stringent intellectual property laws now.
We do.
We
That's
do.
the thing.
Yeah.
And these laws weren't. It's evolved over the last few years as well.
And it will continue to.
It will continue
Because
to evolve.
people will look to safeguard
Yes.
their original creations, also with more stringent, I would say, privacy laws and security laws.
Yes. So I don't see AI as a threat. I
Threat,
just think we need to evolve alongside it. It's a good tool. At the end of the day, I don't think anything can actually...
It's not a threat for truly creative people. That's the way I
Yes.
look at it. It is a threat for those who anyway borrow, beg, and steal.
Yes, but see, I'm speaking from a point where we've evolved only up to today. There are very good examples. Like if you look through YouTube, there are people. This is music. There's this guy who has generated a piece of music. He's just said something, make me a hip hop beat, mix classical music in there with a guitar riff, and it comes out like a professional piece. Now that took him 5 minutes, whereas you would take so much time over it. You pour your heart and soul into it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would say you and I need to evolve to that point where we can use the tool just as well.
That's a valuable.
But our creative input.
Not just to use the tool.
Yeah.
I think it's pushing people in our craft and artistry to not be complacent and up the game
and
also.
Up the game. And actually, I mean, simple math. Amateur plus AI. And then there's creative person plus AI, which has the more value.
That is true.
Yeah. So I don't see it as a threat at all. I just think it's a tool that should be used responsibly.
Superb. Good stuff, Macha. So let's move now to our rapid fire segment. We've reached the end of the pod interview.
Right.
This is where we put Devaka on the hot seat, as it were, as if the seat wasn't hot enough. So remember, shoot from the hip, no thinking. How the smile.
I think I'm going to freeze.
No, you're not. So, what is your favorite song of all time?
Fields of Gold, Sting.
Beautiful. If you're stuck in a desert island, what would be the one music album that you would like to own on that desert island, providing you have music and you can listen to it? One album by an artist.
There's this band called 𝐈𝐬𝐥𝐚𝐧𝐝. It's an indie band. They have a very unique way of making music. They travel to different countries, adopt one of their beats or tunes or songs,
Okay.
and they mix it with jazz and bossa nova.
So it's world music, basically.
Yes.
It's
African
like
beats,
traveling
Yes.
world music. Nice. What's it
Parisian
called?
tunes,
What's it called?
𝐈𝐬𝐥𝐚𝐧𝐝.
Okay. And what's the album called? Is it like just a
I downloaded the whole
compilation? No, but that's a great answer. So
Yeah.
we'll check that out. You can pick one TV show. What is the TV show that has impacted you the most or that you love the most?
The 1987 Ninja Turtles cartoon. I'll still watch it.
Great one.
Nostalgia.
I was going to go for cartoon, but okay, let's cut both of those, will you? Two birds, one stone, as it were. Favorite movie of all time?
Peter Pan.
Which one? Robin
Williams.
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Nice.
For one reason and one reason only. See how he grows up, becomes cynical and so fixated on being the adult. The movie ends with he's still an adult, but he rediscovers his childhood glee, the sense of adventure, and the closing line is, growing up will be an awfully big adventure. It's like he regains the magic he lost. I love it. I watch it every Christmas.
Favorite book?
Winnie the Pooh.
Favorite food?
Good grief. That's tricky. Black pork curry.
Nice one. Favorite drink? Can be alcohol or non-alcoholic.
Favorite drink? King coconut water.
Let's
the
go.
non-alcoholic, but the alcoholic one will be Bacardi and Coke. There's a story behind that. So when I first started working for the clubs, I couldn't afford much. A Bacardi and Coke was 500 rupees. I used to buy one and sip it right through the night.
Nice one. Favorite sex position? Taking too much time. You're thinking of too many positions now. It's a problem.
I like variety.
You pick one.
Doggy.
Okay. Favorite piece of art of all time? The one piece of art that, if forget all else, the earth is going to be abolished and destroyed. But aliens, to identify how brilliant or amazing humanity is in terms of creativity, find and stumble upon one piece of art. Whose would it be? It can be yours also, but that might be a
No.
blowing trumpet scenario.
Yeah, definitely not going to be that egoistic, but I don't know. It's hard to choose.
What era and which one? I know it's tricky,
Yeah.
but
I'll take Van Gogh's works, but I can't choose one. Because my eyes keep on going to how he painted the stars. And
Okay.
this has been a habit of mine, no matter...
do you say Van Gogh is your biggest inspiration as an artist?
No, I can't exactly say that. See, I am drawn towards pieces of art that evoke some sort of emotion and a sense of nostalgia. And I have this habit. I go out a lot at night, mainly because of my work at the clubs, and I think I've made friends along the way, and I do head out a lot. I have this habit of always looking at the stars and feeling a bit of gratitude. If you've looked at any of Van Gogh's works, the way he paints the night sky, the same emotions are triggered, and
Okay.
I have that feeling of nostalgia. Like, you remember when you were 16, what the sky looked like. You remember when you were 19, what the sky looked like, full of stars, and you felt so small. But now you're bigger, and you look at the sky, you still feel small, and you remember those moments. It's a thing for me. I don't try and analyze it too deeply, but the way he paints the night skies, it's hard to focus on one of his works.
But that's
Yeah.
a beautiful response,
I
Madan.
still do it. You'll catch me doing this if you head out with me at night. You'll find me staring at the sky for a few minutes, and I just think, it's nice to be here. I'm thankful.
Nice one. Nice. That's beautiful. Thanks, Madan. You've been a champ. Finally, to wrap this up, thank you, Devaka, for being here.
Thank you for
I
having
want
me.
you to give a shout out right now. This is where you can plug anything new that's happening. How can people contact you if they want to contact you for either work or they want to consult you on any projects whatsoever? How can they reach you? Talk about your socials, your website. This is the plug-in time right now.
Okay, so I'm not focusing much on social these days. I made this prediction during the COVID pandemic where I told all my friends, register the domain under your name, your name,
Yeah.
sureshdesilva.com. You have that, right?
Yeah.
I remember telling you this.
You're doing the site.
Yes. So my site is devakaperera.com.
Yeah.
I do predict a time when social media will be so oversaturated. You'll just want to go to a website where you can control everything that's going on. So I just launched my website about a month ago. I'm still streamlining it, but it looks really nice. It's like walking through an art gallery.
It is a great site.
Yes. So
Devakaperera.com, by the way.
have a look. Anybody can contact me through that. And yeah, that's my little corner of the web.
Good one. Thank you, Devaka. All the best in all your future endeavors.
Oh, yeah.
Ventures.
And one more thing, I have something coming out at the end of this year, hopefully. So I told you my biggest inspiration was comics. I want to take it all back there. My original plan as a kid to start drawing comics. I am going to release something this year, Hook or Crook.
Nice.
The first piece of work is going to be a piece. It's. I can only encompass that piece of work by just saying gratitude. So I'll be publishing it this year, and I've already asked you for your help.
You have it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would tell everybody just to look out for that. Everybody who supported me so far, who always kept on saying, keep drawing, get back to drawing. Yeah, this is the year.
Nice. Good one, Macha. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Thanks for having me.